All right, welcome back, everyone. So today we're going to be moving on to chapter 2. This is going to be building your first line of defense. Remember, in chapter 1, we learned about the mindset. Now we're going to start building the actual castle. Before we buy any expensive firewalls or hunt for hackers, we need to do two fundamental things. We need to establish the rules of engagement and secure our physical ground. And we like to call this the rulebook and the walls. So, our mission for this chapter today, we're going to first try to explain why documented security policies and procedures are the blueprint in our defense. Secondly, we're going to identify the three foundational policies. We're going to be talking about the acceptable use policy, the password policy, and the data handling policy. We're then going to describe why physical security is always layer one of the defense in depth strategy. And then we're going to recognize common controls like access cards, man traps, and environmental protections. Now, I want you to imagine that, again, you're the captain of the guard. Before you train your soldiers to fight, you must write the rule book. Who is allowed in? How do we handle the treasure? Without the written rules, every guard is going to make up their own decision, leading to chaos and even security gaps. Once the rules are set, you look at the walls. Are there cracks in the stone? Can a spy just walk in through the kitchen door? So policies provide the logic, but the physical security provides the first barrier. So those are the two differences. Now, in cybersecurity, we often use policy and procedure together, but they mean completely different things. Now, a policy is a very high level thing. It states what we do and why. It's going to define our goals, like all employees must use a strong password. The procedure is detailed. This is going to be our how. How do we do it? It provides the step-by-step instructions, like go to the IT portal, click on settings, enter your password. Maybe here's the rules of our passwords. Okay? The procedure will tell them exactly how to do it. Now, why do we even bother taking our time to write these documents? Well, there's plenty of reasons, and one of the reasons is going to be, well, we want to establish a baseline. They're going to define what is acceptable behavior and what isn't. We're going to remove the guesswork for the employees. We want to make sure that the procedures ensure that all the tasks themselves are consistent. Like setting up a new user is exactly done the same way every time because we want to reduce errors. You can't hold someone responsible for breaking a rule if the rule was never written down. So we want some accountability for violations. Lastly, we'll have compliance because laws like HIPAA or PCI they often require us to have these policies. So if your organization is required to follow a certain framework or regulatory body, then you must follow it as well. So the first policy I want to talk about is the acceptable use policy. This is one of the first of our big three policies. And I like to call this one the rules of the road. Now, for anyone who's going to use company technology, what are the do's and the don'ts? It's going to clearly list the prohibited uses, such as accessing illegal content or using company servers for personal business. It's also going to set up privacy expectations, informing that the users should not expect privacy on the company device. And then lastly, it should give us the consequences. What exactly will happen if the rules are broken? The next policy is going to be our password policy. This rulebook helps to prevent unauthorized access. A strong policy enforces length and complexity, requiring a minimum length like 15 characters and a mix of numbers and symbols. Maybe preventing users from reusing their last 5 passwords, having a history, and then maybe even having an account lockout policy. Now, this is critical. It needs to lock out the account after a set number of failed attempts. This is going to stop brute force attacks where the hacker just keeps guessing thousands of passwords. Our third policy for today is going to be the data handling policy. This governs how we treat the crown jewels. It's going to establish data classification. It's going to label things like data that are public, internal, or even confidential. It's going to set our storage rules, telling us where sensitive data can live. For example, no confidential data on an unencrypted USB drive. I wonder why. It also is going to cover disposal, ensuring that we shred our documents and securing wiped hard drives before throwing them away. Maybe even shredding them. Okay? Now, physical security, we're going to move on to the walls of our castle because we've got our rules. We've got a good set of rules going. We want to now put in our defense model, a physical security model. And this is going to be layer 1. This includes protecting the personnel, the hardware, and the physical location itself. But why is it first? Because there is an unbreakable rule in cybersecurity. If an attacker can physically touch your equipment, they own it. All of the firewalls, the encryption in the world are useless if I can just walk into your server room, unplug the drive, and put it in my backpack. A digital defense cannot stop physical theft. Alright, so effective security uses multiple layers. First, we need to have access controls, the gates and the guards. We're going to have some locks and keys, basic but essential. Maybe we'll have some card access like RFID badges so they can easily log who accessed or who didn't access a device. And it's also easily to deactivate if it gets lost. We might use biometrics. Use physical traits like fingerprints, irises, face, because it provides high security because it relies on something that you are. And then lastly, we need human verification and response. We're going to have some guards. We need to make sure that someone can be there to help verify the identities and respond to alarms. Now, one of our first focuses will be the man trap. Now, this is a specialized access control, and it's normally a small room with 2 interlocking doors. The first door must close and lock before the second door can open. What this is going to do is help prevent tailgating. It's going to prevent any unauthorized people from following an authorized person. It forces every single person to authenticate individually. The second piece would be surveillance, our watchtowers. So we may have CCTV, closed circuit television. These are the security cameras that are placed at entrances of server rooms and act as a deterrent and as a way to record evidence. We may put some motion detectors in. This will help save space by triggering the cameras or alarms only when movement is detected. So that way we're not recording 24/7. And then alarms. These alert us immediately if a door is forced open or a window is broken or if someone tries to open a door and they don't have access. Okay. Surveillance. Now, we don't just defend against hackers. We also need to defend against nature. And these are what we like to call environmental controls. And the first one is going to be a fire suppression system. In a server room, we'll never use water sprinklers because water destroys electronics. So we use things like clean agent, like the FM200, which will put out fires without damaging servers. We need to keep things cool and the humidity low enough, so we may use HVACs. So we'll control the temperature and the humidity to prevent overheating or condensation. Now there is a such thing as too low of humidity, so be careful, because if the humidity was down to 0, then we have static electricity, and now we have to have ESD problems. So humidity is a bad thing if it's too high, but it's also it's a bad thing if it's too low. So we want to keep it just right. Lastly, can't trust the power grid 100%, so we're going to use a UPS. And this is going to be our uninterruptible power supply that we're going to provide us battery backup to allow for a safe shutdown during a blackout or transition to generators. So let's look at the war story for this chapter. A tech company had a great firewall, but weak physical security. They left active network ports unsecured in their conference room. Now, an employee brought a cheap home Wi-Fi router, plugged it into the wall to get a better signal with their phone. An attacker sitting in the lobby found this open Wi-Fi signal, connected to it, and was able just to be bypassed the corporate firewall entirely. Now, the lesson here should be the physical port security is critical. If you can plug in, you can break in. So now it's your turn. We're going to do Lab 2.1, and you're going to draft an acceptable use policy. The scenario here is a coffee shop, Cowboy Coffee. They bought a shared tablet for employees. So draft me a one-page acceptable use policy for this device. You need to analyze the risks, theft, personal use, write 5 to 7 clear rules, and define the consequences for breaking them. Pretty straightforward. So in this chapter, we learned a little bit about policies. Policies are our rule books. They're going to ensure consistency and accountability. We did a little bit about key policies, the AUP, password policy, and data handling policy, and these are the foundational policies that we looked at. We learned that layer 1 is physical. Digital defenses fail if physical access is granted. And then lastly, we looked a little bit at defense in depth. We'll combine multiple things like access controls, surveillance, environmental controls for robust defense. Now, this concludes our look at the rule books and the walls. If there's any questions about policies or physical security controls, let me know. Thanks for your attention, and next time we'll move on to Chapter 3, which is all about defending the network. I'll see you for the next chapter.